Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Pat's Procrastination, brought to you by the Pat's Propaganda YouTube channel. Welcoming folks to episode 51, the season 2024 finale. We will be doing Pat's Procrastination game recap wrap, but we will be shortening it significantly because there is plenty to talk about when it comes to coaching, and this guy over here, my co-host, has plenty to say. So here we go, folks. Early Tuesday morning. Chudders, how are things with you?
Well, happy New Year, everybody. It's our first show in the new year.
Sure.
Yeah, what a weekend. What a finish. Nice and quiet. No news to talk about. Just as we all predicted, yeah?
Indeed. Well, somebody did predict something that happened the weekend.
So
in fact,
you must be thrilled.
So somebody is in fact now owed a sandwich for 2025.
So you must be thrilled.
So
obviously, how did you feel? With let's just on the game, ignoring what happened after it. How did you feel then with the victory, with the win, with the display?
I was so torn. I think I even took to social media to say, I don't know how to feel, because as they were winning, as they were getting that good drive-by booty and stuff like this, it was like, yay, go. Oh, wait, no, we don't want to win. Oh, but go. Oh, wait, we don't want to win. It was like, I have never been so torn watching a Patriots game, I don't think, for the actual outcome.
Is this the first time in your fandom that you've sort of rooted for a loss?
I didn't exactly root for a loss. Exactly. Okay. But yes,
that you preferred the loss.
Yes, this is the first time that I have looked at it and thought they could do with losing, sort of thing. However,
at the end of the game, go on and what's your however?
Oh, I can't remember now because you said that. And I'm having problems with my earbuds, so go on.
Well, I was going to say, so during the game, your heart was telling you, hang on, this doesn't quite feel right. We should be, a loss is more important to us than a victory, and a conflicting feeling. Do you now understand?
I understood before. Excuse me, I understood before. I hate this when you say that I'm not logical when I am logical. I understood before.
But this was your first time experiencing it yourself. So do you see now how fruitless, to some extent, the victories were? And not to say you didn't understand the consequences of it, but I'm guessing just as this is the first time you're actually going through it yourself, you can see why people last year were like, no, let's lose so we can get a good quarterback. Because last year you kept telling me you didn't understand it and you just wanted to win.
No, I didn't say I didn't understand it. I understand all the logicalness and why people have the opinions that they do. I just couldn't feel that way. It's not, I'm not completely in utter ditz. I know I do come across it very regularly and I do look it, but I'm not. I'm reasonably smart when it comes to certain things. And I know and understand all the logic behind it. The problem that I have got is my heart is so on my sleeve when it comes to my team. I am so taken by all the emotion and all the passion that logic can go out the window. And this game was the first game, if you like, that my logic didn't, that my emotions and my logic stayed and they battled it out watching the game. Whereas previously I've known the consequences and realized and not judge people for having that opinion. It's just then my logic went out the window, and this time the logic sort of stayed around and had a drink and stuff like that. But it was still really tough, and I was genuinely not knowing how to feel about anything, because some of what we saw on the field was entertaining, was fun to watch, was good. You saw some of the players, and you saw what some of the players could do. I've actually got a good list for this game, albeit the consequences weren't great.
Did you get a good feeling of beating the Bills?
Did I get the warmth? Probably a little bit, if I'm completely honest with everybody.
That's the weird thing, is that technically now on paper, when they get to show these stats at the bottom of games, technically Drake May has now beaten Josh Allen because they both get listed as the starters.
Exactly. I can't help it.
Technically, Drake May has now beaten Joe Allen, even though essentially Joe Milton beat Mike White.
That's fine.
Because Trubisky beating Joe Milton.
I know, I get it. I knew going into the game that this was, you're not beating the Bills. I even said this to you offline, so don't come all that crap and not sort of say it admittedly. I said it offline, but it's not really the Bills because it's their backups and stuff like that. It's not really the Bills. However, sitting, watching, being in it, it was, they were in the Bills uniform and we were in the Patriots uniform, and it was tricky. I was conflicted. So, I do know that the win was pointless and affects the draft stock, and there's all these different things. However, everybody can fan how they want to fan, and I fan my way, you fan yours. And there was still small little part of Claire in there somewhere going,
so that first hour before the subsequent broke, how did you feel about the victory? Do you, like, personally, I was fuming.
I wasn't fuming. I was sort of like, oh, this means they're picking fourth. It would have been better if they were picking first. I was wasn't angry. For me, to throw a game, guys were pushing for their jobs. The guys that we had out there were playing for their jobs. How can you expect them to play to lose? I mean, you've got kids. You go to work to provide for your family, to be the guy who provides for your family. Your job's on the line. If you don't perform well, you don't get another job. You don't provide for your family. So to sit here and expect, oh, well, they're all just going to tank kind of thing. A lot of them won't even be here in the Patriots organization next year. So they are playing for their lives. I did not expect them to play to lose. I sort of thought they'd probably lose because of past performances, knew that they weren't really going to be playing Drake May. The Bills are rather good, even if they put their second, third strings out there. I sort of anticipated that they wouldn't match up, but I did not expect them to purposely try and play terribly to give the Patriots a loss, if that makes sense. And I don't think we should expect them. This is their livelihood type thing. So the other thing is, not to sort of touch upon the draft, because I know we don't have time for anything today because of you, but there may not be the bounty available if they'd have had the first draft pick. If they'd have took the first draft pick, there may not have even, it's ifs and buts and candy nuts, and we all had a Merry Christmas. But sorry,
poking me with a stick now to try and get a reaction, because I don't mind about picking fourth versus first. Isn't really the problem. I'd be happy for the Pats picking fourth is about where I'd want them to be picking, no matter what happened. The difference is, if you'd been first, even in a worst case scenario, a team is going to give you something, even if it's a second and a third this year. And
what if there wasn't? What if there wasn't a team? They'd have been overdrafting at one. How?
Okay.
Bleak word that we're not going to put on. You'd have been annoyed at an overdrafting. So you just enjoy being annoyed.
Literally no one traded with you, which I can't believe it would have been literally no one, because I think someone would have given you a second or a third. Like, even if you thought it's a pittance compared to what teams have got in the past, you would have got something.
Okay.
Okay, even in the very, very worst situation, you're picking first, you can have absolutely anyone you want. And
then that is true.
And then subsequent rounds, you're picking higher up earlier.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Win that extra game, and you're picking 4 or 5 picks down. So then if you're picking, at the top of the second round, right at the top of the second round, the moving back into the first round potentially is going to cost you less in draft capital than if you're picking 7th, 8th in the second round.
I fully understand all of that. I'm not disputing any of that, and I appreciate all of that. Never said I didn't.
That's so. At the time, I was fuming. So let's finish on the game. Who's on the list? Who else pleased you from the game?
Hooper. Hooper's been trying to ball out. Now, not great stats, obviously, but the eyeball test, I feel on the game, I feel like he played hard. Maybe he was playing for his job, sort of thing. I really, really hope of all the other things that are going on, because there is so much, the one thing that I personally, Claire the fan's looking for is them to bring back Hooper and Henry and us have this really stable veteran presence, experienced, hardworking tight end room. That's what I'm going to focus on right now, hoping for. That's what my fingers, because everything else just feels so like, oh my God. So yeah, fingers crossed
I
for
hope
the.
they bring back Hooper. He's on my top of my list of Patriots free agents I want them to bring back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we've got Hunter and Hooper going to next year again with Bell, who had one catch, still developing, I'm happy with that room as well. I agree with you.
One preface, I hear that the draft room may be stocked this year at tight end, so we will be talking about this a lot later in the season.
We don't. I think, as you said, we need receiver and tackles far more, so we don't need to worry about tight ends. So, anyone else on your good list?
Booty made my good list and Gibson, but for just they just, I know again we're not going to talk stats. They just look like they were trying hard.
Okay.
They just look like those three players, Booty, Gibson, and Hooper, just look like. I hope they retain them as some presence for this season, if you like, next season, 2025 season. Solid pieces, fundamentals. Now they need sparkles, we get it, and they need other fundamentals as well. But those three guys, I think, yeah, and the fact that we saw something out of Milton. Maybe he's our backup now. One game, granted, but I was quite impressed with his performance and the way he performed and the way he performed under the pressure a little and read the field and things. I was surprised that he did as well as he did. Granted, I know people will throw back who he was against. Okay, well, you can only play the game that you're playing, so you can only watch the game that you're watching. So yeah, there's some guys I thought they were decent, and if there wasn't that thing with the draft, like, oh, if we win, we lose our pick, and you were really annoyed and stuff like that. If that wasn't there, if you'd have taken that away, if that was like irrelevant for this game, I think I'd have really enjoyed this game.
Fair enough. Certainly, Butte, he won my underrated player of the day as well. He had a solid game. He proved he should be sticking around for a comeback on that next year, and I think this. If he continues to play like that, there's a good chance that he could make a roster, depending on what the Patriots do for the rest of the off season, who they sign, and possibly if you do get anything more out of Baker and Polk with new coach, get onto in a minute. I didn't have Hooper on my good list. I didn't have him on a bad list, but I thought he had a relatively quiet game for him.
He plays hard though. No, but when he did show up, I think he showed up hard. So
4 for 27 doesn't. Anyway, you're happy? That's
4 for 27 doesn't make you hard. Okay, whatever.
I thought Milton had a good game, as good as really as you could expect from someone who's having essentially their first start in the NFL. First game, well, I suppose it wasn't a start technically, as we said earlier, but your first true game in the NFL. There's been some clamour over, okay, now he's draft stock. My question to you is, what would it take for you to now part with Milton? What would someone have to offer you that you think, oh, right, okay, well, maybe
a higher draft pick than he's worth?
Okay,
because I know his worth isn't a high draft pick, but he looks like he's going to be a good player.
6th, I think. So would you take a 5th? Personally, on that, I wouldn't. I think he's a backup.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think he's the back. Like I said, it'd need to be a higher pick than he's worth because they need so much. They don't need.
And I don't think you're going to get. This isn't me saying, oh,
no,
well.
Yeah, no. I know, and I know they're not going to get like a second round for him, but that's what they need. Right now, this Patriots team need high draft picks. I don't want several round 5 guys. No. They need to look at this importantly. They need to see what they've got and what they don't have, which is more key. So, to be honest with you, I don't believe they'd get a high enough pick for me to feel it's worth getting rid of someone who has been in the organisation, who's played with some of the players that will retain, because I know obviously now it's like you start again sort of thing, has been in the sort of the scout guy, the backup guy for a year, performed rather well on the field, generally speaking. I don't think he's worth getting rid of for a low round pick. Like I said, nobody will give a second. I'm not saying he should have a second for him, but that's all that I believe it's worth to them, because they need so much. You're wasting your time with a fifth round pick, because then you've just got to go and pick a backup quarterback again, or you've got to spend a ton of money on a veteran backup. So stop doing these silly things and making holes where you don't need to. Sorry?
Do you think that's the end of Brissett now?
I don't know.
I think
Probably
it is. And I think it should
it's be. If he wants to stay for not much money and things like this, it's good to have a vet.
I get why he might say, yeah, go on, I'll stick around for 4 million or something. But why are you paying $4 million or whatever it is?
Veteran, though.
Why?
Veteran presence, stability, experience, knowledge.
I'm just of the opposite side of the street now. I'm happy with Milton. I don't, if like I said earlier, if May went down game 4 and you had to start Milton for 3 games and we lost all 3, that isn't going to bother me too much, because I don't see, hopefully Milton could come in and do enough of a job that you can continue some form of development still. But I don't expect the Patriots to be in the postseason next year. So if we dropped a couple of games because we lost our quarterback, that's not going to faze me.
I think with what we've seen off field this season, not on field, off field, and what is happening, I know we'll go on to coaching in a minute because we're going to run out of time if not. The off field Patriots need that veteran presence. Now, if they do something solid with coaching, maybe he's not so important. The way that they have been this season that we are recapping, wrapping up, they needed veteran, stable, sensible, do your job guys. And I know that's a Belichick thing, but it's still a very relevant thing. That's what's important. You do your job. And I think it is a mantra that we should retain to a degree anyway. And there's a heck of a lot of players not doing their job. And I think veteran presence affects that. And the kind of guy that he is as well, you know, the nice, stable, and I mean this with respect and as a compliment, not as a put down, the way that like Matthew Slater is and the McCourties were, that kind of guy. And I think that's key, and they've lost a lot of that. And I think this season that we have just had has been affected by that. But we really need to wrap up the game thing if you want to do your monologue about the coaching stuff. So
I get what you're saying about Brissett. I'm not sure that's what you're going to get. I feel like he's a bit different to, say, Hoyer, who knew he was a backup. Like, I think he was a backup level quarterback in the NFL. He kind of knew he wasn't the starter. He knew his job was to try and help Zappi and Jones, which obviously failed, but he knew as well. Whilst I think knew this was how this season was going to go, I don't think he yet sees himself as wanting to be, okay, yeah, I'll just come along and I'll hold the clipboard all next year. I think
that's fair.
He wants to try and start some games in the NFL. Fair. And that could be, you know, I think he'll look at what Sam Darnold's done, what even Baker Mayfield in a new shirt going to the Bucs a couple of years ago. I think he still has aspirations that, no, hang on, if I can find the right fit, I'm not necessarily going to win a Super Bowl. I can start in the NFL still.
Fair enough.
And I don't think you're going to get the same sort of guy out of him as you will. But anyway, I think we can have a good conversation maybe in a couple of weeks about free agents, who we want to retain, just Patriots free agents first of all, who we want to retain, who possibly can walk. That's what we'll get to.
We're not going anywhere.
So the news that broke afterwards. First of all, timing of it.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that Mayo's gone
that quickly?
Yes. Did you want it?
I didn't know. I said this last show and I think the show before.
Are you saying you didn't know if you wanted him, or you didn't want him to go? No, I didn't want him to go.
I didn't know if I wanted him to go. Because looking back, reflecting on it, he was really out of his depth. But also, was he possibly given no lifelines at all, sort of thing? Was he put, I think even Kraft said in his press conference that he put him in, oh, the word eludes me as it's going to, a tenable situation? No. Untenable situation. It's early in the morning, folks. So yeah, and that's kind of what I feel. So wouldn't you give him a second year to get better, to get more around him, to improve? That's where I was sort of leaning towards before he was fired. I don't think I was in on him being fired. I wasn't fully against it because the performance, but I was also a bit of a, yeah, but there's this, and yeah, but there's that sort of thing. But now he's fired, it is what it is. It's move on, what can we do, sort of thing, look to the future. I was sad because, like they said on PU, he's a human being. I did not chant for him to be fired. I did not call him names, say that he should be out. And I don't think you're a true fan if you do something like that. It feels icky. He's a human being at the end of the day. But I think it's his livelihood, it's his family that he's protecting and stuff like this. But anyway, pointless. No, don't think I wanted it necessarily, but now and ish, and yeah, flip flop on the fence for me. But it's done, so we move on. It's unfortunate. Concerns. There are concerns there that it's more change. It's more lack of stability. It's everything's going to be new again. It's and we need to make it work because we're running out of time. We're running out of patience. It sort of feels like if you want that, surely maybe you'd give him a little bit more of a chance, a bit more support, a bit more of this, a bit more of that. But it is what it is, and he's out, and he you could see he struggled excessively. But I'm sure a lot of first year head coaches do struggle and do look the same as he did on the sidelines and stuff like that. The thing that surprised me the most was the speed. That was super quick. I wasn't expecting that kind of thing out of Kraft. I'll be honest, but ho hum.
Yeah, it surprised me how quick. I personally was pleased that they decided to move on for him for the development of the Patriots. I felt sorry for him because he was put in such a tough situation this year. I had concerns over the fact he hadn't even been a defensive coordinator, and now all of a sudden he's going to be a head coach. Last year, which is why I didn't really think it was the right move for him. But it was the right thing, and I think ultimately it could be the right thing for him if he can get back on his feet somewhere, which is possibly something we get to in a minute. But he was just in too tough a position, and he didn't succeed really in anything. He didn't develop the team. Even as a head coach, he didn't develop himself. He kept making the same mistakes almost from the first press conferences, where he was having to walk back his comments the next time he spoke. And that went on all throughout the season, where he kind of just didn't get it almost in some ways. He was trying to get it right, and he kept making the same mistakes on the field. Nearly every week we were questioning some calls. Why did you go for it there? Why didn't you go for it there?
Yeah.
There was he just didn't seem like a head coach.
Talking of walking it back, I do just want to preface what I was saying with there's a difference between being happy that he's gone and there's a new start. There's a difference between that and sort of chanting for him and being very degrading of the individual. There's two different ways to be happy about him not being a coach and wanting him to not be a coach anymore. I've got no problems with people not wanting him to be the head coach. It's the vicious side of it that I feel was very unfan-like, that type thing. So I just wanted to make that clear, that if people are listening like, oh, well, we wanted him out. Yeah, I don't have an issue with you didn't want him as the coach anymore. It's that if you took that route type thing, I found that uncomfortable as a fan. But anyway, there's no need for all that.
Who do you want next?
I'm feeling influenced, quite frankly, by chatter, if you want the truth. And my gut feeling at the moment, at present, on Tuesday, the 7th of January, 2025, I'm swaying towards the Vrabel camp at the moment. Although they should very much do their due diligence and do lots of interviews and blah, blah, blah. There's just a deep-seated concern over the, because most people are just 50-50 on the Vrabel Johnson train. No, I don't think I've actually seen any other names be mentioned by Patriots people. And when I say people, I mean medias and fans and all alike, all the Patriots people involved. I've only really seen those two names so far, although it's still, rather early, to be fair. But I think presently, Vrabel train.
With as well.
Say that again, sorry.
I think they've requested an interview with Flores, so I might be wrong. But
oh, I haven't said that. My bad.
I might be wrong. So this is my CV submission to replace Elliot Wolf, because I have the grand plan that the Patriots
we have 3 minutes. Go.
Installing Mike Vrabel as your new head coach, who brings with him Josh McDaniels as your new offensive coordinator. I would retain Springer as special teams coach. I think he did a grand job. And here is my fantasy booking, because I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's highly unlikely. I would make Mayo my defensive coordinator. I suspect he wouldn't accept it. I understand why he wouldn't accept it. And I also kind of understand how, as nice an idea as it is, maybe it just wouldn't work with the locker room, with the way of respect and who's giving what message, and too soon. Yeah. But I think you could see in Kraft's words how much he regretted putting Mayo in the situation. If you were able to persuade him to come back as DC, you can help to rebuild his career. Because if he, essentially that's a step up for him from 2 years ago. It's obviously a step down from this season. But if he can then become a successful DC, then he will get a shot somewhere one day, maybe as becoming HC. And it could be somewhere else. Like I said, Mayo and Vrabel, hopefully, I don't know what's the relationship they have. Potentially, they, as former teammates, they could have a good enough relationship to be able to work through the obvious difficulty there. But if it was at all possible, I'd absolutely love it if they were able to persuade Mayo to come back as DC. Retain Jonathan Jones, Austin Hooper. Go out, free agent spending, get T. Higgins, Trey Smith, Garrett Bowles, Josh Sweat. Then you've got tackle, guard, receiver, and edge rusher.
You've really just gone off and off.
Tank McMillan, trade up into the first round and get a tackle there as well. And there we are. The Patriots are back all the way, baby. That's my submission to replace Elliot Wolf. I've got all the solutions.
Off in your world of fantasy now, aren't you?
What we should do is aim to do a show next week, Claire, where we either talk through candidates or we are talking through a candidate that has been hired and what we see coming forward. We wanted to try and today reflect on the game as much rather than go too overly heavy with future talk. Then maybe week after or so we can look at free agents and start to rebuild this roster. But sadly, season's over. Finish with a loss, which you can be happy about because you won a sandwich and you beat your Bills without a fly.
I can be happy in a bubble that I won a sandwich, not necessarily on the grand scheme of things, but in a bubble.
My last question for you: if you could have a New Year's wish for the Patriots, New Year's resolution, New Year's wish, what were you picking?
That they call me up to be the tight ends coach, of course.
Good God.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want a serious reply from me? What do you want, Chudders?
Definitely not that. I think I'd ring up and say that if you're granting wishes, please can you grant my wish and undo that last wish?
That's so cruel.
I don't need you destroying Austin Hooper. And
I knew you didn't like me, but wow, that's intense. Wow. Whew. And here I was thinking that we were going to be with you in the off season, folks. It's looking less and less likely as the moments tick by. What is your Patriots wish then, Chudders, before we have to wrap up?
I guess I'm gonna just go wish for Vrabel. Let's go for that. I think it's likely.
Okay.
I think it's probably what I would have said last week if you'd have asked me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'll stick with that and say, yeah, come on, let's go. LFG.
Well, there you have it, folks. That is it. Season finale. The end of Pat's Procrastination game recap wrap shows. However, as Chudders alluded to, himself and myself shall be back probably most weeks by the looks of it, because we've got plenty to argue about. So, as always, do subscribe to the Pat's Propaganda YouTube channel so you do not miss an episode of this intensive craziness. Tune in next time, folks. And as always, go Pats.
LFG.